Hi everyone, it's Nat here. Hope you're all doing well. So I'm on to do my July creative design team project for Tracie Fox. Getting a late start this month. So I am using her Dispatch-Despatch Vintage Postal Kit. This kit has 39 pages. It has 12 tall portrait pages, 7 landscape pages. So I printed it out on my photomat paper. Now this is how it comes out if you print it on your photomat settings. So it's quite vibrant. It's absolutely beautiful. But I ended up just printing it on normal settings, and I'll just show you the difference there. So there is quite a difference, as you can see. It's just beautiful on the proper settings. But I think I want to go with the duller sort of printout, possibly. So that's what I've printed it out on, so we're going to work with that. So it has awesome pages, heaps and heaps of tags of, I think there's 3 different sizes, your big tags. I won't show you too well because you can go and have a look if you want. The link will be below, but I'll give you a quick flick. And then there's really little tags there. That'd be like the tall portrait pages. Just awesome designs that you can do heaps and heaps with. And then as you can see, there's more landscape pages. And then there's pockets and little cards that you can slip into your pockets. Even smaller tags. So heaps of ephemera as well. There's even some little bits of fussy cut ephemera. Page tabs, paper clip slips. I have to say that slowly or else I get it wrong. And look at all the awesome ephemera. It's a heaps fun kit, this one. So I've been hanging out to give this a go. So we will get started and we'll make a few pieces. I want to do a bigger project next month with it, but I thought for this month we will do a few little embellishments that we can put in next month's project together. So here I have one of the journal cards out of the kit. Now I did find that there were 2 of them exactly the same. So that was handy, and I have a postage stamp here. So what I did was traced around it onto some of my file folder. It's just old file folder. And I cut a square out that was slightly bigger than the postage stamp. And I'm just using that to cut around. It's a template to cut around so I can make a little window to fit my stamp in on one of the journal cards. I just found that the easiest way to sort of measure how big I wanted it. If you had a punch or a die the right size, that would be even easier, but I couldn't be bothered looking, and usually when I do, I can't find one the right size anyway. I cut a bit of a makeup sponge there just to ink in the corners because I'm sick of trying to get my ink blender in there and just inking around all the edges there before I put my acetate in. Usually I forget. And then I'm cutting around the edges of the journal card. I decided to do that afterwards just to keep it a bit more sturdy on those narrow edges while I was inking on the inside of them. So my stamp fits in there nicely. It's a bit rough, but that's all right. So now I'm cutting around the edge of the second journal card, and off camera I cut a few of the little bits and pieces out because I want to layer them onto that first journal card. So now I've got a bit of acetate that you can't really see there and some alcohol ink. And I'm just dropping some on, but the drops are huge. I couldn't believe how much they spread out. Usually they don't spread for me, so So I put that to the side, and I realised there was some left over on the lid of the alcohol ink. So I used that to do some sort of stamping impressions, and I liked the way that looked. And I'm just putting some little drops and some of those impressions on there, just to get a few bits and pieces on there, and then I can decide which I want to use. The others won't get wasted. I'll keep them for other projects. Now you can see the little bits there that I fussy cut out of the other journal card. I've just got some matte Mod Podge which I'm putting over the top, just to add a bit of difference to them, to make them stand out a bit more when I put them onto the journal card. Even though it's matte, it does have a slight sheen, so that'll make them stand out a bit. So while they are drying, I've got my darkroom door global postmark stamp there, which I've stamped with some VersaFine or Versamark red ink. And I'm just using some clear embossing powder there to emboss over the top. And then I've got my acetate, which I put alcohol ink on. And I'm just figuring out which part I think will look nice over the top of my stamp as my window section there. And I just traced around with some pen to show how big I needed to cut my acetate to stick it into my window. Then I just put some glue on the back of my journal card where I want to adhere my little window. Stick it down. So I'm using old file folder for the backing of most of the pieces in this, since I have so much of the stuff. And just inking around the edge of my stamp, which I will stick down onto the file folder first, and then stick my journal card over the top, just so I can get the stamp placed where I want in my window. Main tip is to try not to let glue ooze into your window area here. And then I cut around my journal card, and I just leave a couple of millimetres as a border because I like to see the file folder sticking out the edges. It gives it a nice vintage feel. And of course ink around the edges. I think I'm using Gathered Twig ink, distress ink for this project. So I wanted to put some writing space on the back, and I thought, well, it'd be fun to use some of my old receipts. I have collected heaps of receipt books and that sort of thing, and they just sort of sit around, so I thought it'd be good to get using some. Bit of a different writing spot to put on the back. So I just tore the piece to fit. And that's the back of it done. Of course, you want ink around the back as well. And then I can add the little bits that I Mod Podged onto the top, which is just that little sign. They were fun to fussy cut knot. And then the little corner pieces. I didn't Mod Podge the gentleman. Didn't think he needed it, but in hindsight, I think he would look pretty cool with that little bit of gloss on him. Would have made him stand out a bit more even. But I really like the way it looked. Just something a bit extra than the sort of normal journal card as it was. So that is the journal card pretty well finished there. I love the way that turned out. So next we're on to making a tag, and I'm using my transparency film again. just loving using it at the moment, and I've got a pile of it, so might as well use it up. So I've got one of the plainer style of tags here. That'd be cool to use as tag backgrounds, actually. Now what I've done is I have put the tag down, then I've put my transparency over the top, then I've stuck the transparency down with washi tape so it doesn't move around. What I'm doing is using some of my stamps. I'm finding ones that sort of relate to the postage theme and the arrows and that sort of thing. I'm using my stays on, I've got a few colours. I've got a brown, a black and a sort of red. And I'm practicing stamping onto the book page just to make sure they're inked up enough. And then I'm trialling them onto the transparency to see how they turn out. And then I am putting them onto the transparency over the top of the tag, just so I know that I get the placement where I want it for the tag. Some of the stamps that I'm using, once I put them onto my test piece of transparency, I didn't like the way they turned out, so I decided not to use them. Like this one, I just found it was a bit too dense. And wouldn't look that good on there, so some of them I didn't get a very good print. They were moving about a bit too much, so it's always good to try them out first. Even then my stamping definitely wasn't perfect, but I still love the way it turned out. So I wanted red, and I found this is meant to be red, but when I stamped it, it was really, really juicy. And when I picked up the transparency and put it over the top of the tag, it looked really pink. I was like, no, that's not the colour I want. So I hunted around afterwards and I found a pink that looked more red. It still was a bit pink, but I thought, well, that's a bit better than the other one. So I ended up settling with that. So I didn't want to make it too busy. The idea is when you flip up your transparency, you can write on the tag, and that will add busyness as well. So I'll sort of give it a few layers then, but just something a little different and fun, I thought, and interactive. So I think that's a set of Kaiser Craft stamps there. The rest of them were ones I got secondhand that didn't come in the packaging, so I couldn't tell you where I got them from or what the brands are or anything, but I know they were, yeah, Kaiser Craft ones. So a lot of trial and error here, and I had mess everywhere, but I did end up with a really nice stamped collage book page there that I can use in other projects, and the vellum sheet that I practiced on I can cut up and use as overlays for some embellishments as well, so I'm quite happy with that. They won't go to waste. So that's the last bit of stamping there. So as you can see, it's not too busy. But just adds to the tag nicely. So again, I've got my file folder there. I thought I'll just cover over where it says Lyrico there. It fits perfectly for my tag backing. So I cut around the tag here. So of course I just took the washi off and I rolled that up because I'm going to use that again in a moment. So I took the washi off, rolled it up to take the transparency off so I could get my tag out from underneath. So glue that down, and then I cut my tag out, and again I leave a couple of millimeters border around the tag so we can see our file folder. Just using my pokey tool to get some glue that had come out from under the tag. So I want to cut my transparency the same as the tag. So what I'm doing is just putting some marks around the tag on the transparency. And I'm using my washi tape on the back of the tag, and I'll stick my transparency to the tag just where I want it, and that's what I'm using the lines for, so I can see exactly where I want to place the tag on the transparency so I get the stamps where I want them. And then I can cut around it so it's the same size as the tag. And of course, because it's washi tape, it comes off the tag and the transparency very easy. Then I want to back my tag, so again I use a piece of receipt. It's just the copy sheet. Just rip that to size. Ink around it and stick it down. So I forgot to ink around the tag before I stuck it on, but fortunately when I ink around the edge of the file folder, it catches the edge of the digital as well. So now I've got this embellishment piece from the kit, and I'd already backed that onto some file folder and left that little few millimetre margin. And I just put glue on half of that down the bottom and stuck it down, and that's going to be a little tuck to tuck my vellum in to keep it sort of shut. And I had to cut my vellum down so it will fit in there nicely. I have a tab punch, which I punched a tab out of the file folder, and I'm using the tab shape from the kit and glued that on top. And I'm using the tab on the back of the tag there. And then the front piece I will stick to my vellum, and that will be the hinge to allow me to lift my vellum up. So I'm just getting my vellum just where I want it. It took a bit of time because it's very hard to see. And one of the corners wasn't cut right, so and then I put my glue down and put it down just to make sure that the vellum stays where I want it. And then I had to cut one of the corners down flush with the tag. And so there you can lift up your little vellum window now. And then I thought, well, it's a little messy, and just to secure the vellum on there that I'd stick just one piece. I cut one of the tabs in half there and put the little top half up on top, just to sandwich the vellum in there nicely. Just holds it in there. Adds a bit of bulk, but I think it just looks a bit neater and holds it in there nicely. And as usual, got a bit of glue on the transparency, so I just got that off with my pokey tool. And then, yeah, you can tuck your vellum into that bottom little tab that I made there. So that is my simple transparency tag. So that is my project for this month for the creative team at Tracie Fox. So go check out all the other ladies, and thank you so much, Tracie, for the awesome kit. Take care of yourself, be good, and I will see you again soon. Bye.